Hello everyone, my name is Chrissy and welcome to my channel. Today we're doing a reviewing romance video for The Proposal by Jasmine Guillory. Here are the 5 categories that we're going to be looking at. So if you're not familiar, those are the 5 things in a relationship I look at in a romance novel to see whether or not the romance is a healthy one, or at least one that I think is healthy. I am not a relationship therapist or a professional in relationships whatsoever. It's just I know what I like, and I know that I want things like trust, communication, kindness in relationships, and especially ones that I read about. So that's that. But along with going over those categories and seeing how many hearts the 2 characters of this book get, I also wanted to do a brief book review because I think that there's a couple of other elements in this story that I really wanted to talk about, and especially it hit upon a pet peeve of mine, so I wanted to talk about that. So to start off with a summary, we have 2 main characters, Nicole and Carlos. The book starts out with Nicole being at a Dodgers game with her then boyfriend Fisher. Fisher is this kind of not very bright actor dude who just looks good. I'm pretty sure that's the reason why Nicole started dating him in the first place. Nicole didn't think it was a very serious relationship until Fisher decides to propose to her at this Dodgers game by using the Jumbotron. Now, Fisher misspells Nicole's name on the Jumbotron. He uses a C instead of a K, like how Nicole spells her name. Nicole's put in this really awkward position of telling Fisher no, that she doesn't want to marry him in front of a stadium full of people. As you can imagine, that doesn't go exactly well. Fisher storms off with his friends, and Nicole, who had rode with him to the Dodgers game, is kind of stuck in this place where people are just staring at her and kind of whispering and that kind of thing. Now, Carlos is with his sister at this Dodgers game, and they happen to see the things that have transpired. Not only did they see it happen, but they also happen to see this news anchor and cameraman kind of beelining their way towards Nicole. In order to save Nicole that kind of further embarrassment, they intervene on her behalf, and Carlos kind of like knocks the cameraman to his side. He's like, excuse me, sir. But they get her out of there pretending to be her friends that they haven't seen in a long time. Now, when I first read the synopsis of this book, I thought that was such a great premise to open up a novel, and I still do. I really enjoyed the scenes at the very beginning. But my pet peeve was hit when, throughout this book, what should have been, I think, a bigger point of contention for Nicole ended up being a little bit of background noise. And this has been happening in a lot of romance novels I've been reading, is that we have this really big point of tension for one character that, yes, that's going to affect your future relationships. Can you only imagine if this gal gets proposed to by this actor, even though he's kind of a small-time actor, she gets proposed to by this actor, and then shortly after she starts dating this guy. I would imagine that there would be a little bit more outside repercussions to that than there are in this book. Social media does play a part in this novel where, you know, Nicole does see herself being talked about a lot, and it does affect her in that kind of way. It just didn't affect her in a big way. It just didn't seem to come off the page at the very least. This is something that was a little bit off-putting for me. So if you're going into this book just for the romance piece, then cool on ya. I think that's great. I do think that not to give any spoilers on this reviewing romance, but I thought the romance was actually pretty good. You know, that's not a bad thing to want to just read about, is just the romance piece. But if you go into it looking at, you know, how Nicole deals with this botched proposal that happened, this isn't really the book for that. And I thought that was quite a shame, because there could have been so much to work with, and that's just my opinion on it. Otherwise, I thought the writing was pretty well done. Now, one thing that I really like about Jasmine Guillory's writing as far as her romance books go is that the characters have more going for them than just a relationship between themselves. And this was especially true in this novel. Nicole is a freelance writer who has different projects going on, and Carlos is a doctor. So both of them have their separate careers and their separate ambitions that they go for. And I thought that that's a really neat thing that Jasmine adds to her books, is that you could easily make it to where the characters just need each other and that's all they ever need. Well, that's not necessarily true. People are whole human beings who have different wants, desires, and ambitions, and if you only focus on one relationship in your life, that is not very healthy for you. So I think that Jasmine Guillory does just an amazing job of making sure that her characters have more going for them than just a relationship that happens to fall in their lap. That's kind of a mini review, and I don't even know if that was more like a review, more of just me kind of ranting about this thing that I don't really like very much. But let's get into the actual reviewing of the romance. So after Carlos saves Nicole from the embarrassment of the Dodgers game, they start going on dates a little while after, like they're friends for a little bit. One of them makes a move on each other and they start dating. So let's start with the first one, and that is chemistry. So I gave this a full heart, and mainly because the chemistry is there between the characters. I liked that they became friendly before they started, showcasing that they're attracted to one another. Mainly just because I thought that was a great way to introduce that they could easily be good friends. Not only are they good chemistry-wise as far as, romance goes, but they also just like each other and they like hanging around one another. Next one, kindness and respect. For kindness and respect, I gave a full heart, and I actually kind of considered giving it half a heart. So the reason why I gave it a full heart is because they really do look out for one another in great ways. So when Carlos's cousin is taken to the hospital due to her pregnancy and some complications, makes food for his family and goes and brings it, like she was already at his house and making food, but instead of just sitting and waiting for him to get back, she packs the food up and brings it to his family that's still at the hospital. So I thought this was a great way to showcase, that she is kind and thinking of him. And Carlos, he very much wants to look out for Nicole, and he tries to do so in very respectful ways. So when she gets mad that he's trying to be too protective, or when he's trying to suggest that she do certain things to protect herself in her own home because she doesn't want him telling her what to do, he backs off from that and respects her wishes of not wanting to just be told what to do all the time. So that was a nice thing to see. The reason why I almost gave this half a heart is because when their feelings come out for one another, they don't really handle it too well. Carlos and Nicole, when they first get together, both agree that they want to keep things just as funsies, so they don't want to have a committed relationship with one another. They just kind of want to hang out and have fun, and that's it. Both of them agree to that, and it's Carlos whose feelings change first, and he announces that he is in love with her, and she does not do very well with that information. It's not that she has to say I love you back, or anyone has to say I love you back. It's just that she tells him, you don't mean that, you need to take that back, that kind of thing, and he gets mad about it. And that was kind of the moment I was like, do I want them to put kindness and respect onto that? But I understand both of their feelings. Nicole was kind of scared that this thing that she had going for them is going to break apart, and she didn't want that to happen. And Carlos kind of wasn't the nicest after that either. And when I mean not the nicest, I mean like he says like one not nice thing or maybe two not nice things, and they're not devastatingly mean, but they aren't with her feelings in mind. But I understand that reasoning that he had is because he was hurt at that time. And he does say sorry later on, and she says sorry later on as well. So that's why I decided to give it a full heart. I mean, everyone's allowed to make mistakes, and I cannot think of one person who is nice 24 hours, 7 days a week. Like, even the people that I know who are very, very nice people have at least one or two moments where they're not the nicest. And that's okay to do. So, leeway for those two, I don't mind it. So the next is compatibility, and I gave that half a heart, mainly because I didn't really know where to put this little tidbits of information. But one of the other things that kind of never gets fully talked about in the novel besides the botched proposal is that Nicole had this relationship with this other guy, and he was also a doctor years ago, I guess. And apparently he was not nice at all, and he was kind of a little bit of emotionally abusive. And I even hesitate to say emotionally abusive because it seems like the case, but we don't really see it. Like, we get small snippets of some of the things that he'll say to her, but we don't really get an in-depth look at her past relationship to realize why she doesn't trust as much as she should. Or not as much as she should, but as much as she does. That part to me was kind of wonky, and it's one of the bases to why she doesn't want to say I love you back to Carlos, is because she doesn't want to get involved with a very self-centered doctor type. And so that was kind of the weird part for me, is that she has this thing in her past which is hindering her ability to fully accept another human being into her love life. And it's never really addressed. Like, it's kind of solved in the novel, but in this way that I don't know if it's actually solved. Like, the problems that she's had with Carlos in this book don't really get solved. She doesn't like the fact that sometimes he's egocentric, because that's like the other doctor. I just wish that that had been explored more. I feel like this book cut down on both those plot points just to give you page numbers. So I put a half heart of compatibility for that. So, and as far as Carlos's side goes, is that he is a very protective person. He wants to be kind of the man of the house. He has a little bit machismo going on. And that's not really fully addressed either, because he's getting into this relationship with this lady who doesn't like that aspect and doesn't like the big tough man will come save you. But he has those moments of it, and there's not really a good bridge between that. So that's why I gave half a heart to compatibility. Next up is communication, and finally, I have a book that gets a full heart for communication. Miscommunication is not a plot point for this book. At least I did not find it to be so. And here's why. Both the characters are very forthright with what they want from one another. So when they're talking about their relationship in the beginnings of it, Carlos and Nicole open up dialogue that neither of them want commitment. And it was this great moment because they were talking with each other about their expectations and about what they wanted. And I was like, finally. Then when Carlos has a change of feelings and finds that he loves Nicole, he doesn't just keep it on the inside and be like, she doesn't love me. He actually tells her what his feelings are immediately. Like, the minute that he realizes, oh, I kind of love this woman, he goes to her and goes, you know what? Just so you know, I love you. And it's this great moment because there's no wondering. There's no figuring those kind of things out and holding it on the inside and wondering, why don't they love me? No, he says it. And then when Nicole hears that, she knows that at that moment in time, in that moment, she doesn't feel the same way. And she tells him. And it's heartbreaking in the way of unrequited love goes, because, you know, she asks him, if you could take that back, we can keep going the way we have been. I don't feel the same way. And, you know, you feel for Carlos because he's pretty much getting shot down and he gets mad about it. Understandably. Now, does that mean that he has to say the things that he says afterwards? No, of course not. Like, he pretty much says, you are only using me, or something along those lines. I don't even know. But it was small in the grand scheme of things. Anyway, he gets upset reasonably, says, why are you afraid to trust me? Those kind of things, and walks out the door. It's this moment where they are communicating. Like, they know, put their feelings on the table. There's not really much to misconstrue from that. It's just that both of them got upset and mad, respectively. So granted, their communication was on point. Like, they did communicate with each other. Now, did they always hear what they wanted to hear? No. And you're not going to in a relationship, and that's okay. So I was really happy with that. Finally, there's not this miscommunication. And then, of course, you know, by the end, Nicole turns around and finds out, I did love him all this time, and yeah, whatever. So the last one is trust, and I gave this half a heart. So the reason why I gave half a heart for trust is because both of them kind of put each other into stereotypes. Like at one point, Nicole just seems to think that Carlos is going to just have this arrogance about him all the time. And then Carlos looks at Nicole and goes, she's always going to be forthright and like blatantly honest. And that's not true for either's extent. So it's not really giving the person the benefit of the doubt. You know, it was just kind of off-putting for me to read those parts, because for the most part their relationship is just a really solid one. And then there's just like, she knew he'd be egocentric, and it's like, what? So it's that kind of trust that your partner isn't just going to be the stereotype that you have of them. So that leaves this relationship at 4 hearts. I think it's a pretty good look at, especially a modern day relationship between two characters who have careers and separate pasts, each of them. I think that this is a great read for that romantic piece, but I do wish that there was more in the plot lines outside of their relationship. By all means, tell me, have you read this book? What did you think of it? If you like this video, hit that thumbs up. If you like seeing my face talk about books, hit that subscribe. And as always and forever, may you get lost in a book.